In 1998, a fun teen comedy named Can't Hardly Wait was released. The movie wasn't a masterpiece by any means, but it featured a solid cast of characters, a simple premise, and a range of stereotypical high schoolers from the 90s. Especially, you know what I'm talking about if you were in high school in the 90s. Now, looking back at it today, the cast was really loaded with talent like Jennifer Love Hewitt, Seth Green, Jaime Presley, who was big at the time, Chris Owen, Selma Blair, Jason Segal, Marissa Nichols, and Eric Balfour, who later acted on 24, but that's just kind of a sample of some of the characters and actors in this movie. Many of them were not known at the time, like Jason Segal, who was just the watermelon guy. I think he had like one scene in the film. That said, in rewatching this movie now, it did a pretty good job showing what late 20th century high school culture was like. There was no social media. The internet was really in its infancy, and it was a time when everyone kind of wanted some sort of identity, from the high school jocks to the nerds to the wannabe gangsters or grunge kids. People ran in cliques, bullying was prevalent in person, not online, and teenagers could really be ruthless. At this point too, nerds really hadn't had their heyday or their comeback. Being cool, being a nerd wasn't exactly cool like it kind of is today in some ways. A lot of the nerds from the 90s went on to become millionaires and billionaires, starting up tech companies and things, moving to Silicon Valley. That said, the film, written and directed by Harry Elfont and Deborah Kaplan, it worked well with really the single premise. It's just a single chaotic graduation night featuring many of these stereotypical characters we saw in high school, and a primary storyline around just a nice average guy. Now, the central story follows Preston Myers, played by actor Ethan Embry. He's a hopeless romantic and that quintessential nice guy who's been quietly obsessed with the untouchable Amanda Beckett, played by Jennifer Love Hewitt, and for 4 years he's said nothing. Now, graduation night is his self-imposed deadline to finally declare his love for her. Why he waited so long is not fully explained, but reading between the lines, it's really more about, I think, Preston overcoming his fear of telling her than actually landing a date, setting him up in the future to not have that fear in case he does like someone else down the road. Now, in between this primary storyline, much of the night features some other short storylines or scenes showcasing the party, providing laughs, like the kleptomaniac stealing everything. We see other storylines too, such as Kenny Powers, played by Seth Green, getting locked in the bathroom with one of his old friends. Now, after some time, the two reconcile, as Kenny has changed quite dramatically in high school, something that happened all too often, probably still happens quite a bit today. Now, he changed in order to become popular and ignored his old friend. Quietly, the authors here, they're really highlighting how having an identity was so critical in the 90s to being popular. Now, in general, there's several characters in this movie who I think defined 90s culture pretty well, and I'm not sure if the young kids could relate to this as well today with online presences, with some of these, Instagram. There's just, at the point, a lot of these kids that were in high school, they just knew the world around them in the 90s. Now, one of the central characters is, of course, Amanda Beckett, nicknamed AKA the Queen Bee, played by Jennifer Love Hewitt, who was in, of course, a lot of other 90s movies. And she is portrayed initially as this unattainable object of desire. She's that ultimate 90s it girl, perfect hair, perfect clothes, and in that doomed relationship with the school's star jock. Still, the film kind of reveals her vulnerability, her dissatisfaction with dating Mike, and her story is really about, I think, shedding the expectations of being that perfect girl and finding the courage to be herself, which she kind of does as the movie progresses, and she's ultimately ready to kind of move on from this perfectness. Preston is the driving force, the narrator, and really the anti-jock, pouring his heart out in a letter rather than swaggering through the halls or through other means trying to impress Amanda. His story, again, I think is less about getting the girl, more about finding the courage to take a chance regardless of the outcome. Kenny Fisher, played by Seth Green, he's again this wannabe gangster rapper. He's created this identity even though he's obviously a suburban white kid. And many Gen Xers, I'm sure, can relate to this character or knew someone like this growing up in high school. Green is decked out in the oversized baggy clothing, sunglasses. He's the suburban white kid using hip-hop culture to try and essentially get laid. Now, this stereotypical character might still be around today, but one thing I know is for sure, it really started in the 90s by that explosion in rap music, really in the early 90s. Mike Dexter, who's essentially the jock, every high school I think had one in the 80s or the 90s, and they tend to be bullies as well, and he's that, classic stereotype of entitled, oblivious, destined for really just a mediocre future after high school. And during the party, he gets dumped in a pretty humiliating fashion by Amanda. And like Al Bundy, it seems like high school is going to be as good as it gets for Mike. Now, Denise Fleming is the other character, played by actress Lauren Ambrose, who's locked in the bathroom with Kenny Fisher. She gives a pretty good performance. I thought she's the intellectual, the cynic in the bathroom with the person she really ultimately despises, criticizing who he's became, questioning a lot of high school culture and how pointless it is, the hierarchy that has been set up. Now, the fun and nostalgia generated by Can't Hardly Wait really stems from a lot of things, and one thing definitely stood out to me was the soundtrack was pretty good. Blink-182, Smash Mouth, some hip-hop hits, and the fashion in the movie can't be ignored as well. It's a combination of slip dresses, flared pants, rugby shirts, a lot of stuff kids are trying to find and wear today. Now, the film expertly captures that specific atmosphere of time when really the biggest existential threat was leaving kind of that your known social circle and challenging the hierarchy in high school. Today's kids, the biggest threat, it's taking a bad selfie, looking bad online, which I'll admit those are definitely surely things to worry about, as the internet is forever, and a lot of these kids, can be bullied online, and it can be absolutely horrific. So it's just very different, the 90s compared to the high schoolers today. Now, in the landscape, I think of teen cinema in the 90s. Can't Hardly Wait, it really stands with some of the other good films that came out. For example, a year later, American Pie came out that focused more heavily on like raunchy humor, guy humor. She's All That centered more on just like a makeover and a romantic story. And of course, Clueless was another one that came out as well. So Can't Hardly Wait definitely has its place among these late 90s teen movies. In sum, I thought Can't Hardly Wait was still a good movie to watch, and especially if you are a Gen Xer, if you're a little bit older, if you were in high school at the time, like myself, it's a movie that's, understands kind of this pressure that was on people in high school to be popular, and really the exhilarating, as well, the potential of how one night could make or break you. And I guess today, the way it could be is one photo, one bad moment could really make or break you as well with these kids. The cast is really superb. I mentioned already the number of actors and actresses that went on to have, maybe not amazing Hollywood careers like A-list, but they were definitely in lots of things, these actors and actresses, and did some stuff. A lot of these people went on, like Jason Segal, to become leading characters in good movies. So it's definitely a defining piece of its era, and just a fun movie, lots of nostalgia, memorable people who made up the high school food chain. It deserves its status, I think, as really a modern 90s teen comedy, And it might not be the best, it might not be perfect in any way, but it's definitely very rewatchable and enjoyable. I'd suggest watching it if you have not checked it out.